Hey everyone, today we're finally talking about sludge. We're using this glorious Hackstrom Viking. It is insanely good. The neck is super nice, it's very comfortable. It doesn't like to go into feedback as much in the studio because I'm, in an apartment, which with people living above me, which means I cannot quite get into sludge feedback territory here without annoying everyone. So this is the only caveat I'll make for this video. Not enough feedback. But yeah, standard scale, and it's tuned down to D standard, like all strings tuned down one whole step, or two semitones if you will. That we're using a 5150 sim and a OCD clone in front of that. So we're basically just pushing the front of the amp as hard as we can to get it to do this sort of thing. It's the sort of thing where the feedback, the note becomes the feedback, and the feedback sort of has the same note value as the note that was played, meaning we can have pretty much the sustain of gods. So when we hit our low D string, it's still tone, and about here, now is where we turn into feedback. And it still has that note value in it. Same with every other note. So that's a nice thing for this type of noise that we're doing here today. Alright, but how do we actually play sludge? Sludge is not all about just having the heaviest tone possible, but that is certainly quite a big part of it. The other half of the equation is playing chromatically. Now, in any sort of regular old rock genre, we will play from E to D, or what used to be an E, is now a D because we tuned down. D to C in that case, we will play, which could still work in a sludge track, but we are more often than not find this sort of slurred approach where we anticipate the note we're going to by playing the blue note in between it, pretty much. And also it has this sort of feel to it. Listen to a bunch of I Had God and you'll know what I'm talking about. It's this sort of swanky groove. It's not super straight and it's not super off. It's sort of in between, and it's not tight to a grid or anything. It's a very loose feel. I'll try to play something here. That would be a fast sludge riff. This is the next topic. Tempo. Tempo is always super important. Each genre has its own tempo range, and sludge is no different. Sludge sticks to the rather slowish tempos, and I think the fastest tempo for sludge should be around 130 BPM or something like that. So we're saying like would be a fast section of a song, like the double time section. But this is the sludge promise is basically when they bring back the riff, lower and slower. I think no one does this better than I Had God in the sludge realm, where they take a single note riff that is played throughout the entire song, which goes something like this. And they turn it into a full-on, like either octave played riff or a power chord riff. that just fattens up the entire sound. That also means you can take a vocal and put it on top of the single note riff and have the guitars duck beneath the vocal to make them pop a little bit more. And then for phrases where you want it to hit more, you could, instead of playing the single note thing, you could play it as power chords or as octave played things. If you're unsure what I mean with octave playing, what I mean is, let's get closer to the camera. You take your root note, in this case A string 7th, and the octave above that, like this, and you play those while muting the string in between them with your... So, single notes with a bunch of chromaticism, that's step one. Just play whatever you want. Like... That'll work. Pretty much anything that's single notey and chromatic or has chromaticism in it will work for a sludge riff. So there's step one. Step two, if you want to bring back that riff and make it heavier, add power chords to it instead of just having the single note variant, or do the octave thing into the third category of chords, which is what I like to call the crowbar chords. Because if you've listened to crowbar for any period of time, you will have heard them. That is your root, the fourth, and then the octave. So it goes like this. Those are always heavy. They always work. So any mixture of those 3-4 elements will work and make a song sound sludgy if you're in the right tempo range. Tempo being from like, I'd say anywhere down from like 40 beats per minute where you're getting to Funeral Doom sort of territory up towards the higher end towards 120, 130-ish. And oftentimes, especially if you're doing the sludge core sort of thing that I Had God is most known for, you'll blend both styles in one song. So you'll start a song off slow, going... only to then go... later on in the song to have everybody in the crowd go, hell yeah! And the reverse of that is also true. You could come back from a sort of into a and that would also make sense in the sludge territory. So, now you have all of the building blocks. How do we put them together? Basically, if in doubt, use more feedback. You start off and you have the guitar play a single note sort of line. Something that relies heavily on chromaticism and is sort of dissonant sounding. You add drums and bass to it and you make the riff last for at least a good half a minute to a minute. Maybe longer. For vocals. Vocals, I feel, should be distorted vocals. I think sludge is best when it does the sort of black metal aesthetic vocals. Or crust punk inspired vocals. Now, that being said, there is also the lower range sort of vocals that is like, yeah! Sort of semi-clean. Although I feel that sometimes sounds a bit too stoner rocky for my tastes. And then you have fun, because it's called playing music, not delivering music on time and schedule. Some of y'all have said you want more bass content on here because you're bassists. Alright, so we're going to talk about bass in these arrangements from now on as well. I'm using my trusty Spectre. You don't need 6 strings, you don't even need 5 strings. 4 strings is absolutely fine for a sludge. but that low B does come in handy at some times. The high C I found with my in my time with Rage of Zombie, I never used it that much, other for bass solos, but those are few and far between. Okay, for gear, it's all head rush, guys. So in this case, it's a B7K dark glass sort of thing into an Ampeg and an 8x10 cap sim. So you could get away with a Sans amp or a similar device. I'm going for this sort of sound. Now, for the recording, I am playing it with a pick, but you could absolutely get away with playing with fingers. I have done so for many years in Rage of Zombie. I think the pick adds more of a front end edge to the sound and gives it more of a crisp, sort of very sudden attack, where the fingers tend to feel more like they interrupt this sort of waveform, if you know what I mean. It almost sounds like a bass synth when you're playing with fingers, which is kind of cool if you don't need the attack, but I think for this faster paced sort of sludge type riff that I'm going for with this recording, I feel I like the attack. So that's pretty much it for bass. Basically follow the guitar for everything. Dig in, follow the guitar stuff. And if you ever do get to solo on bass, try to make it interesting and still groove. So there you have it. Easily my most anticipated video ever. Just done. It took me for ages to do that. The thing is, my partner is sick, like chronically ill, with ME/CFS. If anyone knows about that, it's a thing that will not go away. And it's been disrupting our life for a bit now, a good 3 years I think, and it's been a bit of a challenge to get everything under one sort of umbrella, but I think we've managed to get some sort of normalcy back, and so we're trying to get back on the YouTubes as well. I will try for one update video a month and one sort of tutorial-esque video a month. But I will rely on your input for that. So if you have any suggestions for further videos, things you would like to see or would like to learn on how to do various genres, or specific things within genres, or even just specific things you could do on guitars or bass, let me know in the comments. If you're into this sort of stuff, stick around, hit the subscribe thingy, you know what to do. Bye.